So you're ready to start mastering sniping. Congratulations, the algorithm blessed you by showing the video and you showed up. I get tons of questions about sniping because it's one of my favorite ways to play. A lot of people seem to really struggle to get into it or just really don't even want to do it in the first place. While I'd argue that it's not quite as easy to maybe pull off a crazy high kill win with it, I do think it is a much more satisfying way to play the game. Especially if you're playing solos, you just get an instant tap immediately. Eliminate them out of the game. Even in the squad-based modes, you get that final hit on somebody who gets a knockout and you only got that one shot, get the headshot on the down. You're covering your squad as they're pushing it into a building, or even get the opening shot, maybe even 2 knocks so that your team can push full send on a guy. Trying to decide if they go for the res, what do they do? I fell in love with sniping back in Battlefield 3. It was one of the reasons that I started playing it versus Call of Duty back in the day, because they actually had lead drop that had to be dealt with because you were shooting an actual projectile. It wasn't hit scan. The bullet didn't just immediately go from your gun into the player's head, no matter the range. Of course, Warzone has a projectile system, so there is so much more to master with that. It's a completely new challenge that if you've been playing a lot of other shooters, I'm sure you appreciate, at least to a degree. Obviously, if you're using submachine guns, assault rifles, there's not quite as much lead that you really have to deal with, especially at a lot of the ranges that those fights happen at. I believe the first time this was introduced into Call of Duty was back in Black Ops 4 when they had Blackout. And while it's not as big of a deal probably for the multiplayer, for Warzone and the scale that this is at, it is huge. And it becomes so much more important when it comes to sniping. I think a lot of people would probably argue that starting with some of the fully automatic guns where they're just spraying bullets down range, especially at a fast rate of fire, would be an easier place to start. And you should wait to get into sniping until you're much better at the game. But I think you could really get involved with it at any point. In fact, getting started earlier, I think, is going to be even a bigger benefit to you down the line. Picking up good habits that are going to work for that might not work if you're going to be pushing aggressively. Even within sniping, there's different ways to play, whether you're going to be a super long-range sniper hanging back, trying to maximize your stability, even going for 500+ meter shots, or bringing a fast aim down sight sniper where you're taking fights literally sub 80 meters and relying on getting those headshots for the instant knocks. Regardless of where you want to go with it, you're going to start at the same spot. And by building up that skill set, you're going to be so much more versatile when you find that floor loot sniper and can cover your teammate. You kill somebody who's using a sniper, and now you become even more deadly than just being disappointed that you didn't get that AMAX, FARA, whatever long-range 3X guns of the meta right now. The first step is to start building your muscle memory on distances. If you're on controller, pulling that sniper out, practicing aiming at different targets that are at range, whether that's different trees, signs, and get comfortable with that right stick so you can quickly get onto target. Just something stationary. Especially when it comes to sniping, the lower sensitivity often the better. Some people use things like control freaks to extend the length of the right stick, allowing you to get some more of those precision micro movements. But the same thing can also be done by lowering your general sensitivity. Keep in mind, you're not going to always be sniping at 500+ meters away. Those kills probably still aren't even going to help you in the fight that you're in. So you don't want to turn your sensitivity all the way down to the lowest. But hop into a plunder, find some targets that are about 100 to 300 meters away, and practice snapping between those as fast as you can. It's boring, but even if you're in your pre-game lobby, waiting for a zone to close and you got a minute, practice switching between those targets so your thumb just knows exactly how much to move to get to those different points. Mouse and keyboard players can do the exact same thing. Find targets out in the distance and practice moving your mouse between them. As long as you don't have mouse acceleration on, which shouldn't be on by default, then regardless of how fast you move your mouse from one side to the other, it will always move the exact same distance. The better you can get at precisely moving it that distance, the easier it's going to be to get on target. Fortunately, there's additional tools like aim trainers that you can use. Aim Lab is a good one. Aimtastic is another one on Steam that was free. I used a lot just using the reflex mode. But by practicing this simple thing, it builds up your muscle memory so that when you just think about aiming in that direction, your body will execute on it. You don't need to think about moving your thumb a little bit more up. Your body will just know the amount to do it. Or need to move my wrist this little extra bit. You don't want to be focused on your muscles. You want to be relaxed and just looking at the screen. Your controller, regardless of what you're using, is just an extension of your body. Even if you already think you're comfortable with this, try it. See how accurate you actually are. This also might vary depending on your play session, which brings me to my second point. Maybe you're really casual, this seems like a complete joke, but just like you might warm up for basketball, for soccer, football, start getting some drills in before the actual game, before the actual time you go in, the exact same thing is applicable here. Even if you have the knowledge of what to do, your body might just not be executing on it. So the point of muscle memory and building that up, maybe you even have that, but you need to get it warm. This is where going on a plunder can be helpful, but when you're going up against other players that are fighting back, they know what they're doing, you're not starting at that basic of the muscle memory, the distance, it gets a whole lot more complicated more quickly, and it could still be good warm up, but you still might be missing some of the basics and not even be putting the crosshair where you're really intending for it to go. This brings me to my third point, practice on bots. It kind of ties in with the first two here, but I still consider it to be the next step. You can even use other games that you maybe already own that have some type of custom game or bot integration into it. But when you start getting to this point, I think it's better to actually be practicing in game. Best case, of course, then being actually Modern Warfare, although of course you're just limited to the Modern Warfare guns at that point. This can also be done in Cold War or whatever future Call of Duties even come out. Modern Warfare, of course, is the engine that the game is on, though, and so this is what I'll use. Go into a private match, set the mode to a free-for-all, set the health pool to 150 for sniping, which still allows you to get the one-shot headshots and won't kill the target in case you get an upper torso shot. You can also set it to headshot-only mode, but it's up to you. Set the score limit up to 100 and then save that mode so you have something quick that you can always go back to whenever you want to do some warm-up or get some practice in. I recommend and personally use Euphrates Bridge as the map and turn on the maximum amount of bots. Set them all to recruit, and now you're looking at moving targets, although a lot of them do stand still, but the range you're typically going to be fighting at, going on top of the bridge or one of the buildings on the side, is still going to be sub 100 meters. You're not practicing your lead, you're not practicing the drop at this point, you're just practicing getting right on target on that headshot. You need to be able to, at least the majority of the time, and higher the percentage you can get that, the better, get that crosshair to the exact point that you want it to be at. In particular, if you're playing on controller, it's going to be even more important to practice on the bots, especially if you have aim assist, because each of the games are going to have slightly different effects with that aim assist, and you want to be practicing accordingly. For mouse, there is no assist. You have to be able to get that mouse onto the exact pixel that you want it to go onto. This is how you do it. If you're waiting for your squad to come on, hop onto a game, kill 100 bots. They're already off for the night. Mute the audio, put a podcast on, maybe one of my videos, and grind out a couple hundred kills, practicing hitting those headshots, and just focus on being smooth. The speed will come over time. You need to have this down, though, at least to a basic degree, before you start dealing with sniping, because now you've got to deal with the lead and the drop. This also now depends on what sniper you're using. For how much lead and how much drop you need to put on targets, even if they're at the exact same range away. But that also changes, and the elevation also changes. So if you can't even put the crosshair where you're intending for it to go in the first place, then you're really leaving it up to luck in terms of if this guy's going to die or not. You've got that down enough, though. The next most important thing you need to focus on is the drop. This is especially important for targets that are sitting still. Other enemy snipers that are looking down the barrel at you or at your team that you need to execute your shot on. When people aim down sight in this game, their movement speed is drastically reduced unless they're using something like submachine guns. But if you're out in fields, likely the player is going to have opportunities where they are standing still. Have an understanding enough of your gun that you know exactly where to put that crosshair to get the guaranteed headshot. Okay, so then how the hell do you do that? It starts by knowing the range that the target is out. Once you play the game a lot and really start measuring out the distances, you're going to get a feel for what that range is. I've got almost 1,000 hours in the game, over 600 wins though, and I still use this exact same trick though. Ping the enemy, or even the building that they're on, something near them, either physically or pulling up your map and pinging it, and then look at that ping. It will tell you the exact distance from you to that ping. Once you know the range and you know your sniper, you know exactly how much to put it on top of their head. If you don't know your sniper, well then, my friend, that's where the next step of practice comes in. There's not a really bulletproof great way to do this. Maybe I even need to make a specific guide for a whole bunch of different snipers on when those ranges change, but the best way I've found to do it is going into a plunder match, going on top of a roof, pinging enemies on other roofs to know those distances, and then using trial and error. The good thing is there's not really a lot of variation for this. For example, with my SPR, which was my go-to sniper for a very long time, I knew that at about 205 meters was when drop began on the gun. That meant anything shorter than that, I put it right on their head for all stationary targets. If you maximize for bullet velocity though, which I talk about at length in my other sniping video talking about the best snipers and how to build them, you know that I go for bullet velocity. This makes that drop less, and relative to so many other games that I played, even Battlefield, this game does not have much drop at all in those good ranges that you really want to be effective at if you build the guns for it. Finally, the hardest factor to account for is lead. The faster the enemy is moving perpendicular to your position, the more you have to lead it. If they're going full speed directly at you, you don't need to put any lead on it. The question is, where are they going to be when the bullet gets there? Yes, you need to have a basic foundational skill set on putting your crosshair where you want it to go. Knowing the drop so that you can know how much to aim above the target so it doesn't go into the floor before it even gets to him. Otherwise, when you get to this point, you're pretty much just guessing every time you take a shot. And if that's your approach, you're not going to have any consistency that maybe you see players like myself or others have. Taking players out of vehicles, especially if they're just an attack rover or on an ATV, especially if there's multiple people in that vehicle, it becomes an easy shot. We don't have a test range though. We don't have long enough maps on multiplayer to fight against bots to try these moves. So what's the best way to learn it? There's a couple. I'd say the two fastest things that you can really do are one, similar to the drop, go into plunder matches and tag targets before you go for the shot, knowing the distance that they're at, and then really focusing on the lead, specifically on moving targets. I like to go on top of airport and shoot people that are down at storage. Typically, this is a 150 to 250 meter shot. You know then anything that's closer than that is going to be even less than what you are shooting at from those ranges. So say you're at a 100 meter shot, it's going to be whatever's less than what you were trying at those longer ranges all the way out to storage. You can also clip those moments that you're taking the shot and break it down in a replay afterwards. Bring it into a slow motion, and if you see the bullet land ahead of the enemy, you've put too much lead. If it lands behind, you need to add more lead onto the target. I personally really like to practice on people that are parachuting in as well, because they're moving some of the fastest targets. And you can find that upper end of the threshold of how much lead you would even maximum need to put on a target. But this can also be difficult because you can't really tell if the bullet went ahead of them or behind them, especially if you're looking into the sky. You can't see the dust kicked up. As long as you're not changing your sniper, the attachments, going through this trial and error is going to be a huge help for you. And actually getting that experience is one of the best ways to do it. Alternatively, another great way to learn is by watching somebody who is also using the same sniper that you're using. If you don't have your own gameplay to look back on, look at somebody else's gameplay who's got a sniper built the same way. Take slow motion shots, note the ranges that those are at, how much lead is actually being put on it, and then try and simulate it. This definitely is much more of a feel situation. You're not going to be able to be as precise with lead as you are on stationary targets where you only have to deal with drop. You're adding more variables. But on top of that, even if you do have it lined up perfectly, the enemy could just decide to change directions as soon as you take your shot. That, again, though, is why bullet velocity is so important, because it shortens that window of them being able to change their direction. Additionally, if you can be more precise on where you want it to go and make it a flick shot, where you're not spending a lot of time lining that shot up, but rather quickly moving your mouse, your crosshair to the point you want it to go and taking that shot, lessens that window and makes it more of a reactionary shot rather than being something you're trying to completely math out. Your math could be right, but the target could just continually be moving or changing that speed. It can look flashy when people are going for those quick shots, but often, especially on moving targets, that can be the right move to make. On top of that, putting more shots down range, having a faster rate of fire, ups your probability. If you could shoot 3 shots in the same time that somebody else only shoots 1, it's something that whenever I'm fighting other snipers, I realize quite quickly when they're not taking a shot, they could have already shot me 2 or 3 times in the window that they've been trying to line this shot up on, and I managed to take them down because I'm spitting more bullets back at them. Or I'm willing to take that really quick, risky shot, going for a wide swing jump around a corner, quickly ADSing, and sending the bullet. And I got one more bonus tip for you that hopefully pushes you over the edge and give me a like on the video, all right? Knowing when to snipe. Depending on what you complement this gun with, you may not even need to use your sniper. I may even need to do a full video talking about this, but using your sniper as an opener is always a no-brainer. If you see somebody and they don't see you, try and start with that sniper. Best case, you hit the headshot, they're knocked, dead out of the game. Maybe you just get an armor hit, maybe you even get a plate break. It's significant opening damage into a fight that can give you a lead. If you miss, they may not even realize where you shot from because they didn't get a hit marker. You can take another shot. But it also might be time to switch to your secondary. Often, I bring an assault rifle so I can still cover the mid-range. If you're sniping, especially against players that really know what they're doing and it's no longer an opener but they're fighting back, you can be countered. Them hitting shots forcing you to flinch can make your shot miss. Or if they close the distance, they get to sub 100 meters, those assault rifles can really fry you. They can even get you with a stun, a flashbang. If you're still past 150 meters, they're not sniping back at you, by all means, keep on sniping. They probably don't have anything to counter you with. But realize what guns they have and remember what your secondary is with your sniper. I know this is a mistake because I make it all the time as well. Somebody's running through a field, 100 meters out, I'll open with my snipe, and then I'll get greedy and try on keep sniping. I miss 2 or 3 more shots to their slide canceling, jumping, doubling back, walking speed, and they got away, where I could have just killed them if I had my assault rifle out. Maybe you even hit him on the first shot. You get the armor break. Hell yeah, clean him up with 2 bullets on your assault rifle rather than trying to line up another perfect snipe. You could spray 60 bullets downrange. Let them fly. I'm even comfortable bringing a 3x rifle with my sniper rifle just for this purpose. Whether that's in squads and I'm really hanging back trying to cover my team on their pushes and get openers, or even if I'm in solos. Sniping is such a fun and rewarding way to play the game, and while I'm not best in the game, I've learned so much and I've gotten much better by using these exact tips and strategies. If it helps you out, do me a favor, give it a like, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, because I'd love to make even more videos about this exact topic. I tried to go into a little bit more detail on all of these topics as well to give you that insight and some of my thought process for it. If you have even more questions, stop by the stream. I'm live every single weekday. I've got hundreds of videos up sniping if you want to take a look at it in some practice even while I'm not live. And happy sniping. That's for this one. This is Stomount64. Over and out. The better you can get at precisely moving it that distance, the easier it's going to be to get on target. Fortunately, there's additional tools like aim trainers that you can use. Aim Lab is a good one. Aimtastic is another one on Steam that was free. I used a lot just using the reflex mode.